world.
Pardon?
I don't know what I was gonna say, but we're always impressed with curious people.
It's over here, just in case I see people coming.
Because we only do things that we make up.
I just want to say one thing. Did you do something with the temperature because it's so comfortable in here? I always freeze.
It could be that the door is open right now, but we have two HVAC systems. One for this side and one for that side. And most of the times it is frigid in there year round and over here it's warm. So you just lucked out tonight, Jan.
I guess so. Usually I freeze. So I can think better.
I do know the HVAC guy was here today, so maybe he did some changes, I don't know. So, well, thank you ladies for coming. I greatly appreciate it.
We're glad to have the opportunity.
Yeah.
How about we start with you introducing yourselves
Yeah.
and what T&W Ensemble is, and we'll go from there.
That sounds good. Why don't you start us up?
Okay, we have this written down.
Okay.
Secret. No, I know what we do. So I'm Donna Peckett, and this is,
I'm Danielle Dresden.
and you are
Jan Hawkins.
Jan, and that's Sarah. First of all, I want to thank Sarah because she put up with a lot of changes with this. One person who was going to do this was very ill and couldn't do it. So it's our production. I mean, the person wrote one of the scenes, but so we came. And we want to thank this library too. ED Lock Public Library.
Yeah.
We love libraries.
Me too. We played 1 million of them. Really?
That's, and I guess you can say, tell me to be quiet, Danielle. when
Okay.
I step on your toes. So we founded
This company, yes.
We founded this company in 1985. And we thought maybe we would, since you were the people here, we wanted to put on the website, which we just had redone, under the radar for 39 years.
Since 1985. It's sort of our motto.
And I'm also a tap dancer and an actor. And
I'm a playwright and an actor, and we're both arts administrators.
yeah, I mean,
So we run this
it's
company.
hard work to do this.
A lot of forms and paperwork, and what, can you summarize what T&W does?
Okay, what we do?
Yes.
We're a nonprofit professional arts organization. So we're accountable to the government because we depend on the government and people and income from classes and performances for the funds we get. So there is a lot of administrative work. There is so much administrative work that you have to qualify and to continue to be a nonprofit. You know what a nonprofit is. It's not that they don't pay people. The Red Cross is a nonprofit.
Mhm.
It's that we have a mission and that we have no stockholders. And
And if there's ever an excess of income over expenses, it goes back into the projects we do, not the shareholders. But you mentioned that we get income from classes. What kinds of classes are we teaching?
well, we offer classes in tap dance. They've been somewhat stymied because of that work. I was fortunate enough to have, I won't say fake femurs, 2 new hips because I was for so long.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we have some wonderful teachers we're teaching. Summer is sort of a light time, and I think our workshops with youth really
Uh-huh.
involved a lot of teaching, like
Oh, a lot.
like the Bullying the Musical
Right.
workshops. So
And we also do a number of shows, and so I looked it up. We've done 41 new theater works
don't you think we learned by now?
for general audiences, and 11 works for young audiences. That's how we came to play 1 million libraries. We love the summer reading programs. And we've done 15 percussive dance and musical performances featuring tap dance and
Well, the
jazz.
great virtuosos of authentic tap dance. I could lecture about that for a couple of hours. I could, it's not what you think it is. Not.
And so, in a quick way of so we don't start going on too much,
Because
is
we want to hear, we want you to
Yeah.
talk.
we'd like to work with other career artists. So we have worked with visual artists for set design, like for example, in Step Right Up, Ma'am, we will feature, well, we hope we'll feature, because here's a little behind the scenes knowledge. We got these 3 beautiful banners designed and made for us by an artist who works in upstate New York, and they had to get
They're
sent
cut
here.
paper.
Cut paper collages, and then those are printed, and then onto fabric, and the fabric will be hung, but it has to be hung, so it had to have pockets sewn in it. But here's the secret backstage thing that we just found out today. For some reason, instead of going to us, and I think the person
Well,
who
they were
sews
shipped.
lives in McFarland, but she took it to Overture, so we just hope that it doesn't
They don't use it.
get lost. We have to, so that'll be,
It's like an investment.
That's
Part
on
of what-
tomorrow's to-do list.
yes, like
Oh,
cracking
Lord,
it down and
Center.
saying, we'll just take them back for a couple of weeks. Although I know they don't have many shows going on there, so it's not like they'll end up on a bus and truck show going to the Fox Valley. So we've worked with visual artists and also composers to write original music. Or like, for example, the kids' shows that we took in libraries had scores, written original scores, and then tap dance and detective. And we carried a lot of stuff around. Also sculptors, and once a kite maker, a person who made these really interesting kites that you could fly inside, indoors. You could sort of manipulate it. And that's a brief nutshell of the kinds of work that we have done. The play, most recent work
We
was,
must say the name of the play.
yes, we're
Okay.
doing Step Right Up now. Prior to that, we did a play called Makers and Fixers about people that are, and also based on interviews and visiting maker spaces in Madison.
I'm not
and
calling my
interview-
friends, I'm looking for the copies of the banners, because they're quite.
Oh, yes, yeah, we could show, because we were wanting to show them, and they're really lovely.
Yeah, but y'all go ahead.
Yeah.
Um,
And so makers and fixers about people who like handy men and women, and also makers and fixers. It was a very fun thing. Then my last play prior to that, I guess, was inspired by a real fact that there's this neighborhood of North Miami Beach called what is it?
Sunny Isles.
Sunny Isles. It's this made up sort of area, and so there are a lot of like
Oh,
older, it's primarily women, older women who live there. Plus, though, it's being bought up by like the Russian mafia and money laundering. And so, and I've done another project, a play comedy about these impossible and adorable older women. And so I was thinking, okay, what happens when they tangle with the Russian money launderers? So it turned into, it was of course a comedy, because some of the 2 elderly protagonists had always wanted to be spies.
It sounds like a Richard Osman.
I was just thinking the same thing.
The Thursday
Murder Club.
Murder Club, Richard Osman.
I'll have to,
Danielle was a
I love
avid
mysteries.
mystery reader.
And this is about a retirement complex and the elderly people who live there who try to solve closed cases, and they sometimes run into an actual current case. It's funny, but there is a mystery.
Yes.
Oh, that sounds fun.
And there's now 4 books in the series,
Yeah.
and he's starting a new series, but his first one's being made into a movie, and Steven Spielberg is producing it.
Oh, my.
Oh,
Yes.
well, he said,
And
Yeah.
Pierce Brosnan is in it, and oh boy, why am I blanking?
who is the
So
writer?
Richard Osman?
Richard Osman.
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 Oh, S.M.A.N.
S-M-A-N.
And
Okay,
he
I'll
lives
have
in
to,
England.
I'll have to look him come up with my local library.
Based on what you were saying, I think you'd really enjoy it.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what I was picturing. I was like, ooh.
Yeah, there's, an FBI agent, long-suffering FBI agent who's like trying to get these little old ladies out of her hair. And like, she was saying it's dangerous, and like, we were saying like, at our age, our life expectancy isn't good no matter what we do.
Have a lot less to lose.
So that's the premise.
Yeah.
The next topic is for you to talk about our outreach, because we do a lot of that, and you could explain what I
I
mean.
found the photos.
Oh, cool, share those.
Well, I don't want to get, I want to cut to the chase,
Okay.
the show, but what is it, outreach? In order for us to get funds for the work we do, because we do pay everyone who works with us, and we have since the beginning. I don't think it's a living wage, but we do. And it was our goal, and that's what we do. And so,
And we also are genuinely interested in transcending the limits of one night only, right? That, that theater, especially new theater, is like something that's gonna change your life. But it might not, but also that you get really involved in it. And also to promote a community discussion about issues that the plays are about. And it could also be to enhance a feeling of connection, where people can actually come together and talk about things, learn about new cool books they gotta read. Richard Osman.
well, yeah, you learned about that.
Yeah. So that's another reason about outreach that we do.
Well, outreach means we do a lot of workshops with people. We're doing something really interesting now that we really love. We dreamt it up, of course. It's called Stop Time. And it's with older people living in memory care facilities. And we have a lot of decent support from the Madison Community Foundation for this project. And we go in and we do these workshops where we communicate, we try to connect with the people there, not just play music for them or sing. We do sing songs. I do some seated tap dancing, but we have these top
And they
bands.
learn it, and you teach them.
I teach them a little routine. And so I think it's one of the best things we've ever done. And our point is to make a human connection. They never remember. We have 10 sessions with them once a week. They never remember our names, so we always tell our first names. And they don't remember our names, but it's been over and over again. When it's time for us to conclude, we tell them we're going to leave. After 10 times with you, we're going to leave. And then we say, well, this is our last session. And the last we were at Oakwood Prairie Ridge. This one woman said, well, what did we do wrong?
Yes, and then another place, someone said, why are you leaving us?
Why are you leaving us? So, I mean, it's very fulfilling, and I hope they like it, and we want to continue it,
And it sounds like they want you to continue it too.
Well, we need to find the places. I mean,
Yeah.
we've, and we got behind because of COVID.
Uh-huh.
So, I'll start hawking this in McFarland. We don't charge very much either.
Because we have
We have the
Foundation
funds,
support.
we have funds behind it because we're a nonprofit. So, that's something that, I'm so glad we're doing. I love it.
Yeah, it's very, it's also no ego, right? It's really fun to not care about your ego and just to use the skills that we have of making things up and improvising and talking to people to actually, and people do come alive somewhat. I mean, it varies every day and every time, but I've also seen a person who is like, seemed to be like, you might think they might not even speak, and she started singing.
Oh, well, music is
Yeah.
magic.
Oh,
It is.
But one person that we worked with lived at Attic Angel. That's quite a nice place. We really had a great time there, and it was in the winter of 23. And this woman had a stroke, and her husband lived there with her, and he had no difficulties. but he wanted to live with her, and she couldn't move any part of her body, and she started doing this.
Oh,
It's amazing the communication it is, you know?
Yeah,
But we want to talk to them as real people and not pander to them. And so,
and we learn interesting, fascinating things. Like, for example, in one place, there was a person who, again, I mean, these are people who are living in a locked ward, right?
there are a lot of words.
They need a lot of care. And however, he had been a geology professor. So we brought in photos of rock formations, and he just would say, oh, that's blah, 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 blah,
And
blah.
that's this, and that's that, and it was
And-
amazing.
You know,
You name all the
that was all
rocks.
there. That part of the brain, it's just fascinating. And it needs to be celebrated because it's important to honor humans. You have some cool pictures.
Well, the reason we're here is to talk about this play. It's a play. It's not traditional at all. It is a piece that, we agreed upon. I guess I dreamt it up.
Yeah,
I wanted to work with these people that we're working with. We just sort of make up things.
so what's the title of
The
it?
title of the piece is Step Right Up Man, Stories of Resilience. So it is about being resilient, and I find this to be a difficult time where we all have to rely on some resilience a lot.
And just no matter what, right? You
I
can
mean-
break your ankle on a beautiful day in June, as I did, like this very day, many years ago. You
Oh,
need
June
resilience,
10th.
right? To like, there goes my summer of running. However, so the sections are, do you want to show the photos?
Well,
Okay, the
so
sections.
what it is, it's a performance piece with 3 solo female performers. And they present a piece that 3 other writers have written. So it's essentially singular people. This is an overture. And one person does the solo piece, and then another person does a solo piece, and then another. And
And the first section is written by Fabu, who was the
Babu, the poet,
the poet, yeah.
former poet laureate of Madison.
And the person who was going to come here, but whose health, and her health is improving. It looks, knock on wood, doing well. And so the different sections, her sections, she's a poet, tell the stories of notable Black women in history and their connections to Wisconsin. So that includes Carolyn Quarles, who ran to freedom in the 1800s through the Underground Railroad in Wisconsin. And she ran to freedom from Missouri and ran through Wisconsin and went to Canada and got an education and got married and had a job and had children, and she had this whole life.
She was a runaway slave.
Yeah.
Really.
And also Lorraine Hansberry, the playwright she was at UW-Madison for a while.
And she wrote A Raisin in the Sun.
Really?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
The first play by a Black woman on Broadway in the maybe early 60s. She died too young.
She died quite young, in her 30s.
And Mary Lou Williams, who is a composer, a jazz composer and arranger. When did she live?
Mary Lou Williams, I think, she passed away in the 60s. She lived a long time. There was a centennial celebration for her. She had passed away in Madison because she was this marvelous jazz artist. And for a black woman, to be a jazz artist, Mary, you can look her up. Mary Lou, she was just
What's her, Mary Lou what?
Williams.
Also, things that happened to her art is that some other musicians used her work and claimed it was theirs.
That happened a lot, actually.
Yeah.
It did.
And she went through many different phases, but I don't know what her connection is to Wisconsin.
Well, I don't know either.
Maybe just
Fabu
Fabu
probably knows.
Love, yeah.
She wrote and arranged for Duke Ellington and Benny Goodman and was friends with Thelonious Monk,
Yes.
Miles Davis, Dizzy Gillespie. Oh
She
my
was
goodness.
she was a
Those
phenomenal
were her peers.
musician and artist.
We just don't know about her because the double whammy of being not only black, but a woman in black, just, and also a modern black woman. That's the other poem, which is a real celebration of, it's a woman taking a bath before she goes out, and she's loving herself in all her different
So
intricacies.
Babu wrote this, and it's performed by Nidra Bobo Boyles, who is a very intriguing.
A very accomplished actor. We worked with her on many
Realtor.
projects,
She's
and
a realtor.
she can do anything except for she has a terrible sense of direction. Really, like we were on tour, we were at this gathering, and all of a sudden she's speaking fluent Spanish. I'm like, who are you? Okay. Then the second section is poems by Dale M. Kushner, who is based in Madison. She's a novelist and a poet, and these selections are all from her book of poetry called M. And so I'm going to read what she wrote because she dives into the transformative experiences of women in myth and history, from desire through loss and grief to awakening. So they're poems about Eve, Mary Magdalene, and also women caught in war, in the Civil War in Lebanon, in World War II in Poland, the Netherlands, and a woman in the present day. And also her thesis is that they show us how resilience, how we survive, how we can survive these very tough times. And then I wrote a section that's based on the experiences of my cousin, who was a hidden child in the Netherlands in World War II. My father came to this country in 1939, basically to go to grad school. So he missed the war. Many, many members of his family perished in the Holocaust. More than 75% of Dutch Jews were killed in the Holocaust, which is astonishing. However, and here's a picture you already saw. These are my cousins at the age when they went into hiding.
Oh, really?
For 2
Yes.
years.
For-
They went
yes.
into hiding for 2 years.
3.5 and 2, like this one, who was called Yupia then, or now. Because she could barely talk. So, and they weren't
Let
together.
alone understand what's going on.
Oh, yeah. So the section that I wrote is called Henny and the Strawberries. Do you want to show the pictures of the different
Yeah, I'm gonna,
sections?
and then, well, we want to include, and so those are the 3 pieces that are done by 3 separate females.
Oh, and that's performed by Eileen Catellis. The Dale poems, I don't know why I'm pointing this way. You're over there, Dale. Dale poems are performed by Liz Light, who's an actor we've worked with a lot. She's wonderful, and she's also in Madison. And then the person who plays my cousin Hans is actually played by Donna's cousin,
Oh,
Eileen.
Who live in Atlanta, Georgia.
She is an actor. And, we brought her here to do another show. She's.
Did you ever know who Dr. Ruth was?
Sure.
Eileen played Dr. We'll explain.
Okay.
Dr. Ruth, the famous sexologist.
Yeah, sexually speaking.
And sexually speaking, she is still alive. She's 103. And my cousin Eileen played her
There's a
3 years. So
a
we brought her
show
here.
called Becoming Dr. Ruth.
And she was a survivor of the Holocaust.
Yeah. She was sent away on the kinder transport and got out.
Dr. Ruth is a riot.
She is, and so Eileen has been touring that show for a while. And she's also very short, just like Dr. Ruth. And here, a Dr. Ruth story that I remember from Eileen's show is that she was injured at one point, and she was put on a shelf because they didn't have beds, but she was so small they could just put her on a shelf.
Dr. Ruth Westheimer.
Yes.
So we also have a very good friend, and we're bringing these people here from
Right.
Atlanta and upstate New York. And the person who did the hangings that will be seen at Overture and Promenade Hall is a very good friend of mine named Millie Charles, and she's been a multi-artist. I knew her parents for her whole life, and she, in the recent past, has started doing cut paper collage. So this is all cut paper. They got shipped here. That's why we really. This is Mary Lou Williams. So it's paper.
So it's all cut paper.
all cut paper.
Kind of reminds
That's
me of
amazing.
Eric Carl,
And I don't know who that
who's a
is.
children's
Yeah.
illustrator.
Ah.
And he would kind of
Oh,
do
okay.
some
And there,
very
I
hungry
mean,
caterpillar.
she included the runaway slave there.
Oh, yeah.
And Millie. And then this is the piece based on what Danielle wrote. It's about her cousins. It's called Henny and the Strawberries. You see the strawberries? And then the piece on Mary.
Oh, and you can show the picture of the little kids all by her heart.
Oh, yeah. So the little children, the two hidden children, are, and Millie put them by the heart of the woman because their mother gave them away. Well, she got them back.
Right.
And this is the picture of the mysterious Mary Magdalene.
And also perhaps people who survive different, people who are caught in war. And one thing that the artist told me that I think is really neat, like, for example, this could be the sun
Mm-hmm.
or a halo,
Oh, yeah, I see that.
or this could be a cross or some debris. And of course, the plant is the symbol of hope. And often in religious imagery, you see someone holding these things. So it could be a person planting a garden, or it could be a saint, or
Lots of different ways to interpret
Yeah.
it.
So for us, this is a very big project. We've been working on it for years.
Yeah.
And we have a good deal of financial support behind it. We need to sell tickets.
What?
Yeah,
Ask us
about.
about picking Dale and Fabu and yourself to be that, and then picking Nidra, Liz, and Eileen to bring it to life.
those are
Have a
very
good
good
memory.
questions.
Good memory.
I have those names written down on a piece of paper.
Well, for me, the one, I did it because I'm around. And actually, we were interested in working with Eileen again after
She was
brought
here in
her
2021,
to do Dr.
no,
Ruth.
2022. She
And-
did Dr. Ruth.
And we were thinking we'd like to bring her here again, and I could write something, and we were sort of casting about for topics. And we were thinking, well, she can't do Dr. Ruth again, because she did it. And so then we thought of a couple of other themes, like people that we know who have had experiences with the Holocaust. I don't know why we were on that, but it was sort of because we started with maybe Dr. Ruth. And then I thought, well, hey, I got something. And then by chance,
Well, my cousin Eileen is a very accomplished actor.
yes, she's,
And she left doing that to raise 3 sons, and
But now
moved to
she did.
Atlanta, and so she's had lots of experience since the age of 9. And I wanted her to come back because she's very good. She's
Yeah.
an excellent performer.
so that's how we
She's a
had
wonderful
Eileen
person to
and me.
work with.
And then for Dale, I know Dale. I did some work for her for publicity, because at one point she's a novelist and was needing to do some like publicity things, and that gives her hives. And I was sort of said, I can help out with that. I'm used to that. I have to do it all the time. So
She did write a very moving book. The poems are extremely intellectual, that section. It's true.
yeah,
I mean, the first piece by Nidra, I mean, is full of life, and it's very funny.
well, by Fabu, performed by
It's by Fabu and performed by Nidra. But Dale Kushner wrote a book called The Conditions of Love, and it's quite a good novel. it's a very sweet novel.
Yeah,
I read it. And I guess she's working on another novel.
Yeah.
So,
and we, Liz Light, we drafted Liz Light to do the piece by Dale because we've worked with Liz on many different productions, and she's a very good actor and we knew that Dale's work would require depth. So it had to be
and
somebody.
Liz is young.
Yeah.
The rest of us are sort of old. Well, Nidra isn't that old.
But she is a grandmother.
Yeah, she's the grand, or a glam mother.
Yeah. she calls
Oh, I've
herself,
never
yeah.
heard that term before.
That's how what she put in her bio. Anyway,
And Fabu, because we wanted to have diversity, we couldn't just have all white people. And
Did you just like call her up and be like, hey, we're doing this?
well,
Or do you-
we
kind of,
worked
we know
with
Fab.
Fab
Okay,
for
okay, I was like,
years.
how do you-
And we met Fabu in 1996.
in the 90s, yeah.
When we did a show and somebody introduced her to us, and she did some poetry with music in the show we were doing. So
And
we've
then
known her
years
forever.
later, like we did some little runouts to schools in connection with that show. And as a result of us getting stuck in a traffic jam outside of Elgin,
Illinois.
Illinois, where they, were putting up the like no contact thing, it was a terrible traffic jam. In the back seat were Fabu and Jane Reynolds, who's a jazz pianist who was playing music for that production. And they both discovered their mutual love, Mary Lou Williams, and went on to do all this work on it. And
And actually,
Fabu's done a ton of work on Mary
well,
Lou
Fabu
Williams.
was quite, had a large part in the centennial of Mary Lou Williams.
Yeah,
So,
and so I remember going to see that performance and seeing Fabu, and she said, "Aren't you proud? The godmothers." Actually, it was the traffic jam, really.
I'm gonna turn this off.
So
So
that's how we came to
found
have
them.
all
I mean,
those
we like to
people.
ask people to work with us, instead of have auditions.
Yeah,
We don't want to leave people out. We don't want to reject people. Sometimes we have auditions.
yeah. If we can't find
But these
someone,
people were gung ho.
yeah. And Nidra, we worked with before on other projects too. A couple of plays, one that toured. And also Nidra and Fabu have known each other for years. So that was a
They're
good.
very excited about doing this.
And also Fabu, like, because she's had these health issues and she wants to do stuff, but okay, this was like, would not be require that much from her.
Right.
Because for one thing,
She wrote it.
it was already written and she knows Nidra and so it was, and we've worked before, so it was.
Well, and talk about her own story of resilience going through this right now
Yeah.
as you're.
But she's a Black intellectual who has done amazing things.
Yeah,
Studied in Kenya,
yeah.
has a PhD from Madison.
Isn't it something with Alzheimer's? Does she work with EW with Alzheimer's?
I
Not,
don't think so.
not to my knowledge, but
Abu, well, she has many names.
yeah, her last names are
She has many last names.
very, and her work is very joyous, which is a really,
It's a celebration.
the sections that she has selected for this performance are very joyous, and it's a really nice thing. So one of the things, since for a preview, I was thinking I could read like an excerpt from Henny and the Strawberries, actually, and it pertains to the very part of the strawberries.
Good, because I was gonna ask where that came from.
So Henny was my aunt, and the mother of my cousin Hans, who Dutch names are very weird. And the nickname, so yes, her name is Hans, even though she's a woman, and it wasn't surprising. So
Well, she's Henrietta.
she's Henrietta, but that's another factor in that my family has a history of using the same names through the generations. So there are bunches of Henriettas. There are a few Daniels. I'm the only Danielle. There are a few Daniels and Mark. That's another one. But anyway, so okay. So they were living with And Henny was married to Sem, my uncle Sem, who was like in grad school. He was working on his doctorate and teaching when the war started.
Who did you teach?
Oh, yeah, one of the people he taught was Anne Frank.
And she was a big talked all the
She
time.
wouldn't, yeah, I was more gracious to him, really, because he said she was a brat. Because she talked all the time. I thought, I can't have that brought up in the play. But it was more because he was the teacher and she talked all the time. And that was when he'd been fired from the Dutch high school because Jews couldn't work. They couldn't teach. After the Nazis took over, they couldn't teach non-Jewish kids. So he had to teach in the Jewish school. There's Anne Frank. And one day she didn't come to school.
Anymore.
But that happened all the time. So you just didn't ask any questions. And so Sem and Henny were also, and little baby Hans, were living with our grandparents then. And Sem and Henny were trying to tell their parents, to go into hiding, and they wouldn't leave. They wouldn't. They didn't survive, but and Sem and Henny wouldn't leave them. So, Sem and Henny tried to talk my grandparents into going into hiding. They could not convince them, and they would not leave them. So my parents took a supremely morally courageous action. They sent my sister and me into hiding. I was about 3.5. Jupjes, I told you Dutch names were weird, was about 2. So little that she really couldn't speak yet. I think about my children, my grandchildren. Would I have been able to let them go? I don't know. But they let us go despite the pain. They had resolved to do everything they could to be able to see us again. This is how it worked. One day in June, Henny took me and my sister to Rotterdam. The next day, my father came for a final day with all of us all together. I can't imagine how difficult that was. My father said he sang us one last song, but later said he wasn't sure that had really happened. In any event, the day after he arrived, Henny walked to the Rotterdam train station with her 2 little girls, no doubt holding each of us by the hand. She walked up to her contact, who she knew was in the resistance. He was a tall blonde man in a long beige coat wearing black boots, an Aryan-looking fellow. She handed him her 2 children and left without looking back. What followed was this story. No matter how many times my mother told it, I always had to pretend I never heard it. Do you know what happened then? No. I had to say it. I'll tell you. After I had given the children away, I left the train station. And do you know what I did then? No. At least this part of my part was easy. I'm going to tell you. I brought 2 cartons of strawberries so that I had something in each hand to hold on to. I went home and started making jam. This leads to my 3rd self-help tip for difficult times. Never say theater isn't practical. Make jam when you need to, like my mother. Not only did Henny tell me this story for the rest of her life, she always made jam when times were hard. So that's the story of Henny and the strawberries.
Because this is from Hans's memoir.
Yeah, and it's remarkable that all 4 of them, that Hans and their sister, they were hidden separately, and Sem and Henny were in Westerbork, which is a transit camp for where Jews were collected and then they were shipped off to the death camps. But Sem and Henny never went on to a death camp. They didn't. I mean, they were still in a camp. But yeah, they all survived it. Henny went to collect her children and said, I'm picking them up tomorrow. So much for preparing the children. She's a character indeed. Actually, here's Henny as I knew her towards the end of her life. That's a photo of her and mine. And actually, here's another thing. This is another one. Here you see Seth and Henny together with their children and grandchildren and sons and daughters-in-law, and the whole some celebration. I know that.
Was that the?
Yeah.
The wedding?
Oh no, there's another one. Yeah, because
That's
that's
quite.
the difficult one.
Has that book been made into English yet?
It was just like self-published, right? It was my cousin and this is a very classic picture of my uncle Seth.
Oh.
Yes,
Yeah.
very much a European professor.
I just can't imagine doing that with your kids, with my kids.
Oh.
I just can't. I
And
don't
not
think-
looking back.
I don't think I'd have the courage to do that.
And actually, here's a photo of my grandfather who I never met,
Okay,
and Seth when he was a boy. That's my father,
okay.
Max.
Max.
And his great-grandchild, Danielle's great-nephew, was named
Max.
Max.
There are a bunch. Oh, and here's Max and Henny and Sam, I think, like probably just before my father left.
Yeah, all European men at that time looked the same. Like my grandpa was born and raised in Switzerland, and he has that same like profile and.
My grandfather too, he was born in Germany, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking for a.
It's a very
tragic
poignant picture.
Yeah, because
It's their marriage, right?
it's when Sam and Henny got married and only 4
They had-
people.
But it was a
Survived.
huge wedding. It was
Or-
in 1939, right?
I think it was,
Earlier?
oh no, it must have been later. Here it is. Of these, only 4 people survived.
Oh, man.
2 of them were Sam and Henny, the bride and
Right,
groom.
so then only
Oh.
2 others.
So this.
So this
is a
is-
scandal.
Yeah,
July-
who knows what that says.
July of 1939, so before Poland was invaded.
Yeah,
Okay.
You know, can I stray?
sure, it's great.
Can you read the part about genocide?
Ah, yes.
Because it's extremely potent and
In this
particular
time.
in this time.
Right.
So, and you know, this is Hans's memoir. So Danielle and her sister Jana, and they have 2 half-brothers.
It's a long story.
It's a long story. I call them torsos. But they're twins! And they do everything that her father used to do. Like he used to put his father was a
They're
physicist.
They're identical twins.
He put this tie under his nose. And
Or sometimes a random piece of silverware. And so my parents were having dinner with Bram and Ben and their wives. And
that's the 2 brothers.
my 2 half-brothers. And my father like put, a knife or a spoon between his lip. And Anne, who's married to Ben, just like, oh my God, Ben does that.
And those 2 boys didn't even grow up with her.
No,
father.
and their mother divorced, or when they were 1.5.
So this was learned behavior.
This is-
I mean, what is it?
Where is it? Where is it on the chromosome?
So towards the end of this piece,
Yes.
we bring all of the actors together, and
But that's for an epilogue, just to bring everybody
right, they do
together.
come together.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to mention, but this is towards the end of the play regarding what Eileen performs as Danielle's script.
And it also includes something that's not from Hans's memoir, which is 7 self-help tips for difficult times. Because I'm an American, we like stuff like that.
An educator.
Yeah, and so then she, at the end of the speech, perhaps if we do our job well, we won't need the 7 self-help tips for difficult times. I wish good luck to us all. Take a deep breath and don't forget to look at the banners. And one more thing. I said my story was a bit of a warning, but I hope it is more than that. I am not saying history will repeat itself. I don't think it does that. Still, there are themes in history, issues and challenges that crop up over and over again, as in a piece of music, a play, or even names in a family tree. But what, oh, this is the wrong thing. I'm on the wrong
It was
part.
good.
It was very nice.
But what I see bubbling up all over the world is much more disturbing than too many Henriettas. However, all these unexamined things make me see that the work is not done. But let me be clear. We do not need to make a fetish of the Holocaust. We should not use the horrors inflicted on us as justification to inflict the same on others. Genocide is wrong, no matter who does it. If we want to make sure that we stop raising generation after generation of war victims, it is time for us to continue to work with resilience and not hide from the pain. We need new stories that are hard to tell and hard to listen to. But remember, if it's too much, you have your 7 self-help tips for difficult life. So that was the thing we wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we want to find out, we have
Yes.
some questions for you. I am staging this play. I'm the director of this play, and it was, Danielle came along with the idea. I wanted to do it, and you wanted to write for it.
Yeah.
So, the questions.
So we started also working with our artist colleagues with Fabu and Dale, and I think the actors were involved on that
Yes.
call as well. It was a Zoom call especially because of Fabu's help, and also simple. Oh, and because Millie, and Eileen is in Atlanta and Millie's in New York. That's another reason. But we discussed the idea of what resilience means to us. So we'd like to ask you about that. Like, what do you?
There are no wrong answers.
As a teacher, when I felt like it was kind of one of my roles was to help kids deal with resilience at their level. Like, you know what, whether it be friendship issues that were impacting things at school, home life impacting things at school. Maybe they just really struggled with schoolwork itself or anything academic. Making that like not their whole story. Like that's just something that, it influences you, but it's not going to be your story. We can get through this. Let's find ways to help this almost empower you and move on. And not move on as in like forgetting it, but not making it your fixation of life. And that
Or holding you back.
yes, or holding you back, because there were so many times where it's like and I saw this the closer I got to leaving the profession. It's like we just kept on making excuses and like you weren't teaching about resilience anymore because there was always something that could like excuse for whatever was happening. But that's not the real world. Like if you have that as an adult, how are you going to be able to have it hold down a job? How are you going to be able to hold down any sort of friendships or impact your community in a positive way? And so we really worked on like building community and being willing to talk with one another. And I don't want to say vulnerable with each other because you're 10, that's not necessarily but still being able to build a community in which they felt safe enough to say things that maybe they wouldn't necessarily say somewhere else. And I think those are kind of like the first beginnings of teaching resilience at a younger age. And hopefully, that can help them deal with it when you get to like high school or middle school where sometimes life gets even worse at that point. But it was interesting. I had one student one year with diabetes and the resilience in that girl, because she had to be resilient just due to how severe her diabetes were and how it was just like a side thought in her life because it had encompassed her family so much that she was like, I don't want it to be that's my story. I want to still be a 10-year-old girl who goes out and plays with her friends and doesn't have to worry about pricking my finger because my sugar is too low or too high. You know what I mean? Like, so seeing somebody that age already being able to be resilient in that phase was kind of impressive. So,
Well, what about you?
Well, I can relate to all of that. I haven't had the experience of being a facilitator for someone to be resilient, but I think about the people in my family's life who suffered some horrible childhoods and came through, my mother being one of them. Very resilient, just like a normal, ordinary, resilient person, not someone who accomplished great things, but survived a really horrible childhood and went on to be such a good mother herself without having had really any role models. And when she experienced negative things, as she did as we were growing up too, because there were money issues and other things, she just kept doing what she needed to do because it needed to be done and somebody had to do it. And it was her.
Does she have a lot of children?
My mother had 5 of us.
Oh, that's a lot.
5, yeah. And 4 of us were born within 5 years.
oh
So,
boy.
Oh, my.
yeah.
She had a lot of work to do.
Yeah. And I think about, so she died a couple of years ago when she was 98. So she saw a lot of changes in her life. And to go from when I was a baby to no hot water, had to walk up 4 flights of stairs to our apartment. It was 1947, so right after the war.
Mm-hmm.
Housing was in short supply. She's bending over the bathtub doing my diapers after heating up this big thing of water and, things like that. So, yeah.
Something you said, I want to ask another question about. You said that you noticed that people were making excuses. So
Are you talking about the grown-up people?
Yes.
Yeah, grown-up people.
people were making excuses for the children.
Yes. Yes.
It just came to me. We have some other questions. I'm Jewish, 100%. I'm not observant, but I am a Jew. And none of my father was a Romanian immigrant, but none of my family was in the camps. And so, however, I think from the way you people talk and what I experienced and what you've experienced in your life, when you have these difficult things, you're ashamed. And shame is so devastating and powerful, and it stops you, oh, don't talk about that. That's a bad memory. Why not talk about it? That's what I think those lines mean. And the shame part is so big for everybody in anybody's lives. It's just a huge thing. So let's ask the next question.
Actually,
You already answered it.
um,
People in your life who,
who were resilient, yes.
your mother.
And the 10-year-old girl with diabetes.
It's funny that you said like shamed and not talking about it because my grandma just passed away this year. But last year I took a genealogy course through UW for my master's, and trying to get my grandma and her 2 brothers to talk about her childhood was awful. Like they're like, we don't know anything. And it's because my great grandparents wouldn't talk about the homeland of Switzerland and so I'm feeling things were pretty bad So when they came to America, they just wanted a fresh start and they never talked about things that were going on there. So my grandma doesn't know her, or didn't know anything about her parents or my two great uncles. Except one of my great uncles said that at one point they had a good friend who also moved from Switzerland to this area. But when he would go and visit his family in Switzerland and come back, that was the only time that my great grandpa would talk about life back in Switzerland. And I think it was part of the cultural thing is you don't talk about it.
You're ashamed.
Yeah.
And
And
it's
I
a
wish,
deep thing, it's shame. We all have it.
right. And I wish it wasn't. Like, I wish we had those stories because then I don't want to say it's commiserating, but you understand so much more of where they're coming from and you understand yourself so much more as well.
I think it builds compassion.
Yes.
And I'm thinking that I don't know, I think what Hans says, and I don't use it but I think in her memoirs, she has, I don't know if it's shame so much as also that it's just too painful. The loss was so gigantic. I mean, swaths of, city blocks that were gone, like all those people gone. Her mother came from a big family and had 8, so her maternal grandmother was one of 8 and her maternal grandfather was one of 8. All those people had children. None of them survived at all. Now, and then in terms of my own family history, so there's my father's history. My mother was a German-American girl from Kansas. And shame, yes, shame is a huge thing in her sort of,
It belongs to everybody.
yeah. But I think for my father and also, and in Hans's father, that it was just, they were overwhelmed. They thought they would collapse, I think, if they faced it.
Still,
And
It
maybe
takes-
some shame.
it takes something out of you if you don't look at the past. I
And
mean, you
and
said it.
Penny also never spoke too much about what she did in the camps. But she did tell Hans once, and this is also in the script, that everything that God prohibits, she did in the camp to keep herself and her husband off the trains. As to what that was, I don't know. And that, I think, is, shame, yes.
Which brings us up to contemporary times.
Uh-huh.
Because there is no more Gaza. There is no more Gaza. And I'm just going to say it. Who perpetrated it? Who perpetrated it? The people in my clan. And I don't agree with them.
That was why I felt compelled to write the section that I
It
did.
just,
That
I mean,
Hans's
you know.
words herself, because this was written before the war in Gaza, are a little bit, she said that she had very mixed feelings about the actions of the state of Israel. So she said that before. I figure I can put these words in her mouth now. I'll send her the script after the show.
There you go.
So in case.
well, right, you didn't send it to her.
Well, because they're very opinionated. It's my God, that's, I've been hoping I made strawberry jam.
Does she still live in Poland or
In Holland, yeah,
Okay.
my cousin does. I visited her there most recently, and in 2018. And actually, she's of course getting old. I hope to see her again. She's the oldest of, and then there's Judith, who is ill. I hope I get to see her. And then there's Mark Job, who was born after the war, who's very different, as you said, Donna, because you've met them. Like, you could tell those two went through a war.
Oh, yeah. Well, anyway, I mean, it's not, history doesn't repeat itself, but,
You'd still think we'd learn,
Yeah, I still think,
human beings,
yes, and the Jews.
right?
I do, I think, and I'm ashamed of them.
Ah,
I am. I mean, I grew up in a small southern town in South Florida. I was one of two Jewish children in my school, and my brother was younger than I was, and I lived in Israel. I never wanted to go because I was told over and over, go to Israel, go to Israel, you gotta go to Israel, go to. And I said, I'm never going there. But I did go because I needed to get some more money to travel. I had some money from my grandmother, and the money was in Madison, so I had to make a fast decision in Hungary. This is the truth, I swear. And I thought, oh, well, I have a sort of a distant cousin in Israel. I'll go there. So I went, and actually I worked on a kibbutz because I was so tired of traveling. I traveled for nearly 2 years by myself. I was so tired of it that all I wanted to do was work. And if you lived on it, the kibbutz, people who lived on the kibbutz love the free labor because they give you food and they give you a place to sleep. And they love me, of course, because I was Jewish. Most of the people who go to work there, a lot of them are Dutch. And so I really learned a lot. And I have a wonderful friend in Israel, wonderful friend, still now. And I met her in the 70s, and she's still my friend. And I just feel like, what is going on? What is going on? Did you not learn anything?
I think that's the crux of the matter is you learn. And there are so many people in this world that don't want to learn. They don't take the time to learn other people's perspectives and learn that empathy about others. And that's what makes it feel like history repeats itself, is because people refuse.
Well, we're in the middle of a genocide.
yeah, I mean,
How do you think the everyday, ordinary Israeli citizen feels about what's going on?
I think
it's a very
I
good
think
question.
it's a great question. That Israel has a very liberal, I would say, even left-leaning population that is totally against this. And they also have a very
Hard right.
hard line, the Hasidic Jews, that they hate the Palestinians. They hate them. Bibi Netanyahu, Benjamin Netanyahu, hates the Palestinians. He hates them. And I have family members who hate them. I just discovered this in this because Palestinians are dark. They're dark. And I'm a white Jew, Ashkenazi from Europe. There are dark Jews. There are black Jews. But there's the whole thing about black and white right there. And
So
and
it
there
combines
is-
race
it's about race.
or the overtones
And
of
also,
racism.
the Holocaust, the Nazi Holocaust was an absolute trauma. Absolute. And it's very hard to get your head around all of this because what are they doing to these people? And I think you have both sides in Israel. I don't know if you hear about the side that really sees that it's a devastation of a people who have a culture and who have children. How many children have been killed?
I know.
That's what happens in
Thousands.
war. Yes, the soldiers get killed, but the children and the parents, the people who live there, and they have no land anymore. Everybody says, "Oh, Egypt takes them, Jordan takes them." Maybe they don't want to go. You know, they live in the land of Palestine. So I think it's just a gut-wrenching time. And that we have to look at it ourselves, and we have to take responsibility,
Oh, yeah, that's a thing too, absolutely.
accountability. We're living in a time of no accountability. You make a mistake and it's not. And so it's a very difficult situation. I have a friend, well, my best friend Jeanette, her parents were in Auschwitz. I knew them, and they passed away now. And I see what happened with them. I know what happened with them. They lived in the town where Auschwitz is, Oświęcim, Poland. And I knew them. I really loved them. They were wonderful people. And what it did to their lives was indelible. And but you just can't turn on what you think is the next enemy just because you got slaughtered. What do you do? What do you do? I mean,
At one point in the memoirs, my cousin Hans wrote, quoted a woman who's in the Dutch parliament, or was at that time, who was also the child of survivors, and her parents or grandparents, I believe this is a young woman. It was her grandparents who had survived Auschwitz. And this MP wrote, she didn't want to raise another generation of war victims, because she was speaking very specifically like this process of handing down the trauma from generation to generation. Like we need to stop it. And I think that is the thing that has not happened on any grand scale, well, anywhere. But, actually, I don't know. I think like in South Africa, people with the trials of, what are they called? Or not trials or hearings, where people would where they would explore some of the horrors of apartheid and also then apologize. Also a little bit in Ireland and a few places over the Troubles, and maybe in Rwanda, some places where people have tried to stop the cycle so that the trauma doesn't get handed down.
well, what about here? What about the people who were here before we were ever here? We
Yeah.
can stop soon.
Yeah,
What about what young Black people are going through? I mean, it's just a huge question.
But then you throw in the people who just want to be in power. And they don't care about any of that other stuff.
That's right,
So
they
you've
want to
got
be in power.
Netanyahu, you've got Trump, and most politicians at this point, many other countries'
many.
leaders, yeah. So that's what drives them, not any of these other things like humanity.
But
and
this is
it's
like,
easy to harness rage. Whereas let's have truth and reconciliation. That's what they did in South Africa, these special hearings, and was very complex, maybe not always successful, but sometimes. But yeah, it's much easier to get people enraged, and you can have the power. They'll let you lead them then if you get mad.
this was a wonderful conversation,
Yes,
and I really appreciate both of you.
yeah, very interesting
Well,
to
thank
hear
you for
about your
coming.
experiences.
Well,
I wish
yeah,
more people would have been
Well,
here.
that doesn't matter. This
Yeah.
is,
Really, it doesn't.
I mean, look at what we delved into. We don't, that's the way it is.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too, glad I came.
I mean,
Thank
I gotta say this, we don't get big audiences. Well, sometimes we do.
Sometimes we do, and
We
we're
have actually
surprised.
sold out a smaller show in the Overture, but we don't
Like
expect a
4
big
times,
audience
but
for this.
that was like crazy.
And we just have to do it.
I have 2 questions for you. Are you both local, living in this
We
area?
both live in Madison.
Okay, and are there any men involved in your company?
Oh,
Oh,
sometimes,
yes, particularly the person, definitely.
Yeah.
We're concerned about this. We're not bashing men in this.
Yeah.
No, I didn't think you were.
No, we're not.
But also,
We have,
yeah,
there is one director reviews worked with for years. He
Who
directed-
actually lived, I think he lived in Francisco, used to live in McFarland, you know, Francisco Torres.
I don't know, but
think
Francisco, we
so.
work with Francisco, and then we have, we have these, wonderful, guys who worked with us on a show that was in 2021, and then at Overture Lab in 2023, and one of them is Andrew Lonsdale. He lives
Oh, yeah.
out in the country and outside of Black Earth.
A
Yeah,
farmer who likes musical theater.
yeah.
Oh, that's gonna
Really?
be unusual.
They're
Those
very
circles on the Venn diagram don't usually cross each other
This-
all that
We
much.
haven't done an all-female thing since
Since 2018.
Oh,
2018 when we did, yes.
okay.
And so,
Or one person who's worked with us for years, Nelson Eisman, and
Nelson Eisman,
we
Nelson
traveled
is the
all over,
ultimate Jew.
and he was playing a bad comic, and so a bad Jewish comic, and so we haven't worked with him in years, and he's, you know,
We've been everywhere with Nelson.
yeah, all
He's a really wonderful person and impossible.
and impossible. However, we were doing a show, and we thought, let's bring this character back for a cameo, the bad Jewish comic. And so yeah,
Rumba Rudy.
Ramba Rudy.
Are you ready to rumble?
Rumble.
I mean, but so now Nelson is all of a sudden starting to send me emails about, well, what if Rumba Rudy came back in another show? So, yes. we-
And actually, you know, might happen because the bad humor is really funny. A bad comedian, everybody loves a bad comedian. And it can work. And also, I know it's a small enough dose, we won't kill each other.
I'm really glad you asked that question
Yeah.
because I don't want.
And
this
also
to
on
seem-
the,
I don't want this to seem to be male bashing at all.
I thought of it more as just an empowerment of women.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
that was, yeah, the
Yeah.
result, although the stage manager for the show is a male.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
he's with all these women, Shane Hine.
I'm
He's
just thinking,
he's
yeah.
just absolutely great.
Yeah.
And he's so calm. I
So-
said, Shane, I don't know what you're gonna do with all these females because he doesn't always do that. I mean, he usually works with a more mixed group.
Or, you know, and more like, or he works with Francisco a lot, and like they did a big production for some community group in Sun Prairie that had like 50 like high school
children.
kids.
The Penguin Project, maybe?
It was the production, it was a performance of
The Descendants.
The Descendants. It
Oh,
was,
wow.
They
Yes.
had, I think they had more than 50 children.
it was just, I don't
I don't know how
imagine.
they did it. And Shane has worked with us before.
Yeah,
He worked with us on the Dr. Ruth show.
right,
So, you know.
and that's how
So
we,
when is the play?
Oh, here, it's at Overture Center, Promenade Hall. Where are those cards, Donna? Promenade Hall, June 21st, 22nd, 23rd. There are two evenings and 2 matinees. Here is the postcard. Step right up, ma'am.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, great, thank you.
Thank you. And I mean, I'm excited just to hear more about how Step Right Up Ma'am goes and
Well, we don't know.
staying in
It's a big
contact for maybe
risk.
some future,
oh,
you
sure,
know,
yeah, we'd
programming.
always love to go talk to libraries.
come back.
Yeah.
Anytime.
Maybe with the Rumbling Rudy. I mean,
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, Rumba Rudy never is quiet. He'll tell you joke after joke after joke.
I blurt out. He grew up before everybody got diagnosed with ADD, so.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
So,
Donna, right?
yes,
Yeah.
Donna.
Yeah, I've been watching you and listening to you and trying to think of who you remind me of. And